Welcome again, everyone, to another episode of M9ND TV. I'm Tahat9, your host. This is the place where we inspire thoughts and inspire thinking. So tonight I have a very special guest. This brother I've watched a couple of his videos and I've listened to some of the things he's presented. He's absolutely brilliant. I'm very excited about actually talking with him tonight. Aseer, the Duke of Tears. Aseer?
Peace, my brother. How are you?
I'm great. So,
Thanks for
Aseer,
having me.
before we go, I know probably you're world renowned by the great works that you do. A lot of people know of you. You've been putting in work for quite some time now. But for those who don't know you, those who may just be coming into the knowledge of who you are and what you actually present and do, can you just give us a little background?
Okay. For those that don't know, I am a lecturer, natural historian, Moorish scientist, and just all around researcher, I guess. And after a certain amount of years, been putting in, as you said, a lot of work in the so-called conscious community, as well as the greater, let's say, community of Earth. I was able to travel and find different things out and prove various things about our people as a consolidated people and not a broken, fractured diaspora of ex-slaves who, for whatever reason, can't work out their own personal issues to move as a unit on the world stage. So in the process of that, I was able to actively pursue certain things on the private side of this situation that we find ourselves in, and was able to actually get proof and validation for the fact that we were not imported Africans as slaves, and that we are not, or that we had a history that existed prior to what they refer to as slavery. And even the fact that the word slave doesn't even describe us. You know what I'm saying? This is a term that can never be applied to a melanated person, because that would slave denotes Slovenian ancestry. Because none of us who grew up in the sun can claim that, then we are claiming the designation of someone who was foreign to us. So in the pursuit of that, I was able to put some things together and show and prove, to back up with people like Marcus Garvey, the Prophet Noble Joe Ali, of course, so many of our great elders and scholars who, for whatever reason, based upon our lack of understanding or our lack of gratitude, or maybe just our apathetic nature as a people who believe that they've been conquered, that these people have never received the just due that they're supposed to get, even in our everyday lives. You know what I mean? More people know who Lil Wayne is in our community than Francis Quest Wilson. And that's a problem. You know what I'm saying? Because if we don't venerate our own and protect our own, then why should anybody else respect us? And so my goal has been to help people understand that, especially ones that were born on this side of the world, that they have a vast estate and imperial empire that still exists for them, and that they can actively take pursuit of, so long as they are not claiming or holding on to words of art or etymological terms that put them into slavery voluntarily.
Okay.
So that's pretty much it, man.
That's dope. That's dope. All right. So I guess the natural question for me is the Duke of Tears. What is Tears? And you're the Duke of Tears. Can you just give us a little bit bill on that?
Okay, there was an elder sister who was a high priestess of an ancient so-called sect of high priests and high priestesses that carried out a lot of old things, and wound up having relationships with the royal families of the old Moorish empires, both through Europa, that we now call Europe, and America. So that high priest, Queen Nkweke, blessed the dead, she bestowed the title Tiers, or Duke of Tiers, or the Duke of Tiers, as a title of nobility in her ascendancy, being that she was getting close to the time when she was leaving the planet. She performed a ceremony in which she basically consecrated me that. And then from there, so a duke is usually the highest title besides king. The dukes are usually the ones who are the noblemen who, for whatever reason, were deserving of the throne, but for whatever reason, somebody else put themselves in position. Sound familiar? And then in that term, had to give up the secondary title. So that's where that came from. So that's what a duke means. And tiers just means levels. So if you're a duke, you have to be the duke of something. You know what I mean? So like they say the Duke of Edinburgh or the Duke of whatever. So the levels I think that she was talking about were the pyramidal levels that we go up as we move up into our ascendancy of knowledge.
Indeed.
So
Indeed.
That's what she bestowed me on. So that's what I accepted in her behalf. Blessed the dead.
Oh, that's powerful. I actually thought Tears was a place, and I just didn't know it. So I said I had to ask you that.
Yeah, it's TIERS instead of TEARS.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's like tears, like levels, not tears like crying.
Yeah, Tears like level, like the next tier. So
yeah.
You are like a living encyclopedia of Moorish history and information. How far back can you go with this with the information? How far back can you go? Like
I don't know, man. As far back as I guess I need to, and that depends on any given day based on what you're researching, because there's never been a time. See, as a historian or somebody who studies history, I understood a long time ago that most modern history was created. Therefore, that means that most great men of history invent themselves because they can't be, because the people or the populace that's around at the time is not going to really see the work they do until later. You did. So they're mostly not accepted by the people of the time, you know. Like the prophet, when Prophet Noah Ali came, he said it's going to take like 80 years for y'all to really see what I left y'all. And he right. And now me or us being in the 80th plus year, let's say 80 plus years of him coming and going, we're now finally really catching on to how deep and how relevant this thing is to us as having a individual identity, not predicated on what modern perception of Africa is. So that's very scary to other people. So whenever we go back into history itself and we use the modern time of dating, what you also have to understand is that history is not a straight line, but you're taught it the way that it is. We illustrate this by saying, like, okay, so we're taught about Columbus, right? Columbus came, right? 1492, sailed the ocean blue, brought Jesus to me and you, right? And then from there, we went to a Jamestown, Virginia colony, right? And then from there, we went to what? A Civil War, right? A Revolutionary War. And then from there, it was all slavery until what? The Civil War, right? Then after the Civil War is what? Emancipation, right? Then we go through another couple 100 years, or what it seemed like 100 years of what? Jim Crow, where we still being killed, lynched, burned, tortured, raped, right? Then we get into what? Civil rights, right? Then from civil rights, what do we get into? The crack era, right? From the crack era, where we get into the mass incarceration prison pipeline system, right? And now where we at now? And now we're into the patchwork family, everybody's gay, right? This is what it is now. So historically speaking, let's ask some questions. So if Columbus was the one that discovered the place, how come the slaves was British? You know what I'm saying? If the Moors lost, if the Moors were from Africa, then how come Columbus followed them over here? if we've been in bondage for 400 and what they say 400 plus years, but the country is only 241 years old, then how are we in bondage longer than there was a country? How about this? At the time that the Constitution was written, there was no United States. So who wrote that? You see what I'm saying? So stuff like that, when you start really taking see, people are emotionally invested in it. And we're emotionally invested in it because they got us hopped up on the slavery thing. You understand? So when you're coming from the perspective of the slave, that means then that you're always a perpetual victim. You understand what I'm saying? Because somebody has done something to you that you haven't received recompense for. But a slave can never receive recompense from a master.
Indeed.
Put it like this. You ever heard of this guy named Ho Chi Minh?
Yes.
Know who Ho Chi Minh was?
Who was he?
Ho Chi Minh was the leader of the Vietnamese people during the so-called Vietnam War that they won. Let's say that again. The Vietnamese beat the biggest military at that time in the world with Kalashnikovs, which is AK-47s, right? In sandals, my nigga, in flip-flops. You know what I'm saying? You hear what I'm saying?
They beat them in flip-flops.
And they did it by digging holes. You understand? They destroyed an entire military army. And yes, their country was messed up and they messed it up and stuff like that, whatever. But Vietnam, like a paradise now, nigga. So when you look at somebody like Ho Chi Minh actually created the manifesto to get the Vietnamese people to rise up against the colonial powers based upon the time that he spent in Harlem.
Indeed.
Amongst the Moors, amongst the Asiatics that was taking them back and forth, and he was seeing how the white man was doing all of the shit to us over here. And he wrote that in his books.
Indeed.
Read it. Like, people don't understand, man. Read about that dude. He was ill, man. Hitler too. Hitler in the Mein Kampf said that the only person that he ever respected in history was Muhammad. And the only religion in the world that made sense to him as far as anything was Islam. Original Islam. He made a stress in the book, said original Islam. So he talking about Moorish science. He talking about us. Then he said that the Jews in America are the worst people in the world because they have enslaved the direct descendants and the children of the Most High God, who they refer to as the Negroes, black in America. And when the world realized why I was getting rid of these European Jews or whatever, that's when the whole thing is going to be up. And everybody's going to realize that I was just trying to kill these people for no reason. Now, again, I'm not bigging Hitler up. What I'm saying, though, is that there's always more to what they're saying. Do you really think about it like this? At the time that Hitler was talking all of this stuff, let's be hating niggas and this, and that. Do you know that it was Hitler who, after Jesse Owens won the race, ran up to him personally and shook his hand and made sure that he was received like a prince and a king while he was in Germany? And it was the United States government that treated him like shit and didn't even give him no respect and all of that. And he got more respect from the Nazis.
The funny thing is, when you watch that movie they made of him, you saw the movie, Jesse Owens?
Me personally, I need to watch it probably, but I be boycotting stuff like that because it's always from the perspective of, the black man, Negro, he got to, deal with all the oppression. He can't speak up for himself. He got to deal with it. He's always a white man that got to speak. You know what I'm saying? But so I just be tired, but I should watch it again. You're right. Was it good?
Because in the movie, like, based on what you just said a while ago, that was the complete opposite of what they showed. When he won, Hitler left without shaking his hand or,
that's a lie. That's a bold lie. Do the real research on that. Hitler was the one that bigged them up. It was the United States that was on that.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? I was on that crazy shit. They was trying to diss them. But I say all of that to say that there's two sides of your history as a melanated person in this world, and specifically in America. You either got the Negro history, which is the slave history, which is the perpetual trustee history, or you got the history of the Moor, which then puts you as a prisoner of war, which means you have the right to go back to your own country and states based upon the treaties that still exist for you. But you can't access them treaties if you are under U.S. protection. And U.S. protection means 14th Amendment citizenship.
Let's start with the Moors. Let's start with that term itself, Moors. How what's the history of that term, and what does it mean as a matter of fact? What does Moor mean? Moor, or is it a derivative of another term, or is that the original term itself?
It's if we were speaking in Comesian, what they call Egyptian, it would be Mur. It would be MR, right?
Okay.
But when we look at it in the hieroglyphs, it's Ma'ur, right? So it's MAUR, right? Which is the Latin way of writing Mauritius or Mauritania or Mauritic, right? So Moor, MAUR, in ancient Comesian is seen in the hieroglyph as the owl head standing on top of what looks like a mouth with what looks like electricity on the left-hand side of it. Then there's another hieroglyph in E. Wallace Budge's book that has it where it's a falcon with what looks like a thunderbolt on the right side.
Okay.
And the Moors, according to the ancient hieroglyphs, were and are the highest priests of Anu, according to the Palermo, right? Palermo stele that this was taken from, which is one of the oldest steles from the original Old Kingdom. So again, that then means that the Moors, at least as they were written in Egyptian, were basically a race of high priests of Anu. Anu is Ainu or Ainubus or Anpu, who is the symbol of the great black dog that represents, on the metaphysical side, melanin itself.
Yeah. So hold on. So are you saying then that the genesis of the Moors began in ancient Egypt, or does it predate ancient Egypt?
I'm saying that it's a universal term that existed and came into a certain epoch in which it was used to describe the indescribable.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So as Moors in Egypt, right, it meant a high priest, right, or the highest priest of Anubis. But then in the so-called Greek, which don't exist, so that really meant Etruscan, right, or Minoan, right, or what else was all Peloponnesian, right, what they now call Mediterranean. Those people, those Moors, right, who in their language, let's say Greek, which again was Minoan or Etruscan or whatever, Macedonian, that it meant black or one whose face was kissed by the sun.
Okay.
Understand?
Okay.
So in Greek, it means that, just like Ethiops meant that, right? But the Moors now, as a group, right, of people, right, culminated now out of all of the ancient peoples. So when you talk about the Canaanites, when you talk about the Hittites, when you talk about the Amorites, when you talk about the Hamathites, when you talk about the Axumites, when you're talking about the Carbeans, when you're talking about the ancient Sumerians, when you're talking about the Elamites, when you're talking about the ancient Babylonians, the Macedonians, okay, then we bring it over here, the Olmecs, right? The what they call all of these, right, are Moors, right, of different regions and areas that up until 1492 functioned between the 7th century AD and up to 1492 functioned as a coherent empire that ushered everything that you see around you into being. This means that everything that we understand as science, mathematics, building, architecture, construction, health, medicine, herbology, electricity, everything that you see around you was ushered into being between the 7th and the 14th century, which meant that the entire humanity, meaning everybody on the planet, wherever it was popping, was speaking the language of the empire. And that was, at the time, Morabic, that we today call Arabic.
Okay.
When we talk about the beginning of the Moorish Empire now as a physical thing in the world, that came with the rise of Muhammad, right? But when I'm talking about Muhammad, I'm not talking about some Arab out of Arabia. I'm talking about Muhammad, who was the son of Abdullah, who himself was an Abyssinian, a part of the Abyssinian Empire, right? Which at the time was what? Coptic, right? Mm-hmm. So that means they was Christian, right? So that means Muhammad, whose pops was Abdullah, who was a nobleman amongst the Aksumite Abyssinian Empire, after he started talking about Islam as a universal mindset, the people he was talking about it to, them dirty Moors, chased him out. So he had to go back around his father's peoples who already had backing, who happened to be Christian, right? But not Western Christian, you understand? I'm talking about original Essene Nazarene Christian, Coptic, which again is Moorish too. Because if I was to put a Coptic priest in front of you from Ethiopia, and I put a Muslim priest in front of you from Ethiopia, you wouldn't even be able to tell the difference unless one started saying Assalamu alaikum and the other one say peace be unto you. You understand?
Indeed. All right. So you're saying the empire of the Moors, as it coalesced and spread throughout the to Africa and what they call the Middle East,
as the continuation of the ancient Egyptian Empire, which was a continuation of the ancient Phoenician Empire, which was a continuation of the ancient Carthaginian Empire, which was a continuation of the ancient Lemurian Empire / Atlantean Empire. You see what I'm saying? Yes. Going now all the way back to the flood and then before that.
So this is dealing with basically ancient people that survived through time, and their descendants carry on
up to now, exactly,
all the way until now. Good. Now,
up to now. So when you see you wearing a fez, can you turn the reverb down? I can't really hear myself.
I'm sorry. Is that better? Go ahead.
Perfect. So if you go into a museum and you look at an Assyrian, and you go in there wearing a fez, you're going to see the same dude wearing the same fez you got, with the tassel and everything. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But it's a coincidence. Like, so that's a foreign people, right? That has nothing to do with me. But I'm wearing the same conical headgear that they've been wearing since the beginning of time, and I'm not related to that. Exactly. That's what they got y'all thinking. Exactly. You get what I'm saying?
Yes.
Ourselves based upon their education. Once you put down their education and you start to look at the thing objectively, it ain't even got nothing to do with me as an individual person trying to take anything from anybody. It's about everybody that's been living off of me all these years.
And you just connecting back the dots to everything.
Yeah, man. I'm saying that what you understand as Western civilization came out of the Moorish Empire. Remember, they said when the Moors was ruling, the Muslims, the Christians, and the Jews lived in total harmony, right? They made a delineation, though, between the Moors. They said under Moorish rule, the Muslims, the Christians, and the Jews were in total harmony, to the point where you couldn't tell one from the other. Indeed. But again, that means then that the Muslim, the Christian, and the Hebrew were all the religious aspect, whereas the Moors, who are the Muslims, are the descendants of Muslims are Mohammedans. Mohammedans are the descendants of the original founders of the life culture that we refer to as Islam. In the Quran, they're referred to as the Bayt El, the Bays and the Eels, the family of the Prophet, the people of the house. You understand? Mm. So this is a bloodline thing that has nothing to do with religion. Yes. As a Moor, you could be a Muslim if you want. But the religion is not what defines you.
No.
The national character defines you. And the religion then becomes the practice. You understand? There's a difference.
Indeed. So I'm trying to get the big picture, and hopefully everybody that's watching or listening can also, see it when you paint, help to paint it for them. Shows where the empire was in before it went to Spain, and then some of the other places it spread to. Like, where was everything coalescing, and who was the group of people that decided that they wanted to, how did they grow the empire as vast as it became, to the point where they almost even conquered France. I believe they got as close up to the Pyrenees Mountains.
No more. We conquered the whole planet. Books you could get called The Consecrated Talismans, volumes 1 to 3. There's another group of books you could get. There's a book you could get called The Diplomatic Relations Between the United States and the Barbary Powers. There's another book you could get called The Wars in Barbary. There's another book you could get called The Moorish Empire, period. There's another book you can get called The Golden Trade of the Moors. There's another book you can get called Muslims, Christian Slaves, Muslim Masters. There's another book you can get called Black Masters. Moors in the Antebellum South. There's another book you can get called The Slave Revolts in Bahia and Brazil. What I'm saying is that the entire world, so they only talk to you about Spain, but when they say Spain, they got you thinking over there. But remember, who was the first people to colonize the so-called Americas?
It had to be the people who were here, us.
Well, okay, besides the Aboriginal indigenous peoples that was here, who was the first people from Europe to come over here?
Oh, Columbus, the Spaniards. That's what they say.
Okay. So before it was Spanish, it was Moorish, right? Because the Spaniards came out of the Moorish Empire, right? There was no, remember, between the times the Moors set everything up, between 383 AD and 1492, there was no such thing as Europe, Portugal, France, what else is there? Italy. None of these places existed. All of that was Roman territory.
Oh, yeah.
All of that was Roman territory. So before the Romans had it, who had it? Who was running it?
Was it the Greeks?
No. Well, even when we say the Greeks, then you talk about Macedonians. Before they was running it, who ran it? Who was the direct competitor of Rome?
Who was it?
Carthage.
Oh, Hannibal.
Right. So everything that was Roman before it was Roman was Carthaginian. Everything that was Carthaginian was Phoenician. Everything that was Phoenician was ancient Egyptian. You understand? It's a continuation of the same empire. We just got it boxed different in our mind because we grew up with white colonists who made movies that showed the Romans as white people, and we bought it. That showed Cleopatra as a white person, and we bought it.
So the Romans were
psychological programming.
The Romans were our people as well.
The Romans were Moors too. They were just amalgamated, meaning they were of lighter skin. And when they came up under the Carthaginians, and when the Carthaginians fell to Rome, Rome rocked it. And then when Rome fell, it fell to the ancestors, to the descendants of the Carthaginians, who were the Moors. They tell you that Moors is a Roman term, right? And they say that the Moors had cavalries in Rome. The Moors, Septimius Severus, the name September come from the Moor that took the empire over again in the name of the old Carthaginian, because he was a direct descendant of Hannibal, Septimius Severus. So again, when we talk about the empire, we talk about the order of Islam and the order of Christ. So when we say the order of Christ, we're really talking about ancient Rome. We're talking about ancient Rome now. We're talking about the original Rome. But then we also talk about the Holy Roman Empire, which started in 962 AD and lasted all the way up to 1863 under the jurisdiction again of the Moors. Because the Moors was the ones that put King Otto and Edith back on the throne. Because I told you, at the fall of Rome as an empire, it fell to the Moors, who used the wild Germanian Neanderthal tribes to lock up all of them up in the hinterlands beyond Hadrian's Wall. And then when the succession came around 711 AD now, that came out of the consummation of the empire that came from when Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his father Abdullah seized Mecca, right? And they created the Islamic Waqif, the trust. in the name of the Moors. And then the Abyssinian, so-called Coptic Axumite kingdom put up money and scholars, right, to the Moors of Muhammad's line who lived in the colonies that were now back in Muhammad, right, which was what they call Sabia or the Nabatean kingdoms, right? And then they all coalesced and founded what was called the Abbasid Caliphate. Therefore, what I'm saying is that the Moorish Empire was founded by both so-called Islamic people and so-called Coptic Christians. So that's why we can live amongst them, because before they was Islamic and before they was Coptic Christians, they was dealing with the Hebrewism. And the Hebrewism, before they was Hebrews, the Hebrews came out of who? The Canaanites. Remember? And who were the Canaanites? They were the descendants and the inhabitants of the original kingdoms that asked permission from the pharaohs of Egypt to set up dominions and kingdoms over here.
So when people conflate the Moors with the Jews and or the Hebrews and other groups,
I'm saying that the Moors, the Christians, and the Hebrews
were the same people. The same. That's what I was saying. They're the same people.
Why you think I don't argue with none of these people? You ain't never seen me on the Facebook.
That's right, and that's what I love about you.
Do none of that.
That's what I love about you.
For itself. Y'all niggas make divisions. Let them niggas make divisions into things that they want.
Yes.
The more you try to find the flaw, the more the flaw is you. So when you allow the flaw to exist, you become perfect. And the flaw is everybody want their version of what they are to be the best.
Yes.
So when I see Haile Selassie wearing a gold fez, I look at that as a gold fez, but the Rasta call that a crown. When I'm wearing a turban on my head wrapped up with the fez and all of that, right? That's one thing. But when the dread wear his, he called his a head wrap. So the head wrap does not have an ecclesiastical or nationalistic identity, but the turban does. You understand? There's a difference in the language and how you're supposed to operate it. Just because you see an Arab wearing a turban, that don't mean that I got it from him. That nigga got it from me.
Exactly.
Because that's what my people gave his people to civilize them, because they were so savage that they were killing each other over sheep and incest. I don't come from those people. Islam is not an Arab religion. It did not start with Arabs. And the Arabs that they talked about that set it up were Moors. You understand? Read the third prophecy. Have your listeners research the third prophecy of Muhammad and read what he said. You'll never hear Imam, Arab or otherwise read that to you, because that's exactly about the Moors, where he literally named us. The other thing we got to understand is that we come from a people who existed in kingdoms, empires, and dominions. So if I had a kingdom in Spain, you understand, I have the right to now extend that kingdom to wherever else it exists. So when they say that the Moors went from North Africa into Spain, they talk about Moors from here going up into España and then establishing the dominions of España over there and over here. The same way the United States will go and set up Puerto Rico as an extension of the United States, even though it's not a part of it. You understand? So what it is over there is what it is over here. You understand? So you don't think that Alex Haley knew that he was lying when he plagiarized the book, The African to Create Roots? Wow. That's a plagiarism. That should never happen. And it came out in court. Niggas sued him, and it came out in court that never happened.
Even with the even the thing with the Willie Lynch letter, that was written by a brother right here in North Carolina.
In court. Research it more.
It's called African.
I'm telling you, it came out in court that the whole thing was fabricated, that he based it on another story from an African dude from a story called The African. That shit has nothing to do with what happened to us over here. That's part of the perpetuation that was put in by the dirty Moors, i.e. the Black Boule Masons, who function from the Scottish Rite Prince Hall faction in the high echelon degrees, not the Blue Lodge dudes that you see walking around with G's and stuff in their cars. Them niggas don't know nothing. You know what I'm saying? They keep them in the dark. They don't know nothing. I'm talking about the high dudes, the black dudes you don't see, the Vernon Johnsons and these type of guys. You're not going to see them. But they the ones that's there working with this devil to keep him in play so that way they can hold on to the little crumbs on his table. They are the Stephen in the Candyland plantation that's propping up Joe Candy for you to hate him when he really Steven is the one signing the checks. You understand?
So Alex
or at
Haley,
the top, all these dudes is working together at the head of all these organizations to keep everybody in the dark.
I want everybody to make a note of that, because that's something for you to go research and to look up for yourself.
Doesn't matter.
A lot of times,
Islam.
Aseer, a lot of times, people, you know, when they hear information that's coming from people like you or myself, our people are very apprehensive about it. They don't, you know, oh, it can't be true. But if a white person, yeah, they've been programmed.
You seen the movie Beloved, right?
Yes.
You seen the movie Beloved. You remember School Teachers,
yes,
right?
Yes.
And whenever they was going to whip and do what they had to do, they had to tape the pages of the Bible to their flesh, and they had to walk around and incite themselves and hype themselves up with the fake word to be able to do the evil they was about to do to the Asiatic man, because it's a terrorizing thing. They terrorized you into making you think that they was been controlling you for 400 years, when that could never be true, because the country mathematically is only 241 years old. So therefore, that means somebody had to be a slave here before you. So who was that?
No, there's been lots of different terminologies that have been put on the melanated people here in this part of the world. We've been called Negro. We've been called colored. We've been called black. We've been called African American. What's your take on these terms?
If I take a tiger from the jungles of Borneo, and then I put that tiger into a zoo in London, and then I moved that tiger from that Borneo tiger that I put in London, and then transport him to the United States, right? And then that tiger stays in the United States for his whole life. Unless that tiger makes a declaration to say that it is not a tiger, that means that tiger's nationality is still from Borneo. You understand? So I could call it whatever I want to call it in London. I could call it whatever I want to call it in the United States. But in the end, whatever I call it is not the name of what it really is. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
So if I was here already and you came here and you told me that what my name was and what my ancestors have told me from the beginning of time is not true about myself, and that the only way I can be better in this new world is to follow you. That's the difference between conquering and colonization. When you conquer somebody, you just want to conquer and take what they got and leave them broke. When you colonize somebody, you trying to go take what they got and then make them totally into what you want them to be, which is a depreciated version of you. You understand the difference?
There you go.
That's the difference between us and the Africans.
Mm-hmm.
The Africans were colonized, but they still maintain their own language. Our language, our custom, they would take our children, kill us, and then tell our children that we grew up in the jungle. And there was nobody around to tell us different. Because all the elders that knew us from Timbuktu and Songhai and all that other shit, it was forbidden for them to wear their feathers and turbans and sandals and tell us and all of that and teach us the ways and all. So now we become dependent upon them. The same way if I was to go outside right now and find a stray dog puppy, a wild wolf puppy, and bring it into my house and feed it from my hand, what's going to happen to that wolf? Is it going to be wild?
It's going to be domesticated.
No, it's going to be domesticated. So now I don't call it wolf. I call it Sammy. You see? I call it Toby. I call it Mr. Whiskers. You see what I'm saying? But that's a wolf, nigga.
Yeah.
That's a wolf.
Yeah. So
imagine the black man now. So now you tell me because Jesse Jackson coined the phrase African American, that becomes law now? So Jesse Jackson can write political policy? No. That's an agenda, buddy.
Yeah.
So if you go by any name that your mother and your father has not called you, then you have given up your nationality. Therefore, you are what they say you are. A man defines himself.
I want to get into
a man don't allow somebody else to define him. So when I see these red, black, and green people and all of these militant Black Lives Matter, these niggas out here wilding, all of that, first thing I do is when I ask them, they come to me with that shit, I'm like, well, let me see your ID. Once I see that ID and it still belongs to the United States, I know you either an agent or you just ignorant. Because you cannot be out here speaking out against all of this stuff under this colorable title that you say don't exist, but you identifying with, and then at the same time you paying these people taxes every year. Mm-hmm. Your children, you protesting all this, but your children go to public school. You bugging. You want them to target you. My so-called Pan-African friends, if you don't want to be a Moor, whatever, cool. You talking about all of this, go back to Africa, then go to Africa and get a nationality from one of them. Do that. Don't just be sitting here talking about all of this, how bad it is here and why we don't got here and we just take it from here. You can't even tell me what part of the continent they took you from. Get out of here, man. You could show me dinosaur bones from 65 million years ago, but you can't show me a slave ship from 150 years ago? Come on, man. The empire as it stands, in European terms, they refer to it as the Moorish Empire. They also refer to it at times as the Ottoman Empire. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the Turks and the Moors were a part of the same compact.
Okay.
Because the Moors seized Constantinople in 732, but they weren't able to get it, so they just kept moving on and then conquered China by 745, and then they moved southwest further down. So it wasn't then until the Turks came back in 1453 to finish the job, and then that's when they formally did it. But the Turks that seized Constantinople and turned it into the Ottoman Empire and all that, those were the Osman Ali Turks who came out of the old Khanate. So they was all Moors too. When I'm talking about dark-skinned people. Yeah. These people that you see in Turkey today became that way or look that way based on all of the banishment and migrations of getting the darker ones out of there between the Crimean War and World War II, which remade all of Europe, and they got rid of all of the gypsies and the other type of people. That's why when they started sending blacks, like the Buffalo Soldiers, into the wars in World War II and all of them, everybody was bugging. That's what the movie Miracle at St. Anna was about.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
When you had the Buffalo Moors from America who went into Spain, and they was carrying the head of the statue. Mm-hmm. But the head of the statue that they was holding was the statue of Isis Urania, who is the symbol of Islam. When you see the crescent and the star, yeah, that's the image that they had of Isis Urania wearing a fez. Mm-hmm. They just broke the fez off and they was walking with the head. 1787, the Constitution was done the same year the treaty was done. Because the treaty was done first, and then they did the Constitution, which was the backup for the treaty. But those came after and then after that came the formal letter from Washington acknowledging and putting the United States back under the Moorish Empire. Read the letter that Washington wrote to Sultan. He says that we are an attachment to your dominions. That's what it says.
Yes.
And they've been that ever since. The empire was in interregnum, meaning that it was in recess, because all of the inhabitants of the imperial dominions fell under different jurisdictions and then had to eventually set up individual fiefdoms or kingdoms to protect the integrity of their aspect of the empire. So we, as the people, are the empire. The land is the reflection of that. We are outside our own status. Therefore, the land is under the control of the occupier, because we have not coalesced together in the name of the last rulers that ruled them. So in order to get the treaties not to apply to us, they had to get us to abandon the treaties. The only way to get us to abandon the treaties and the laws was to fall from our original character. And the way that they did that was by getting us to adopt different nationalities and names that they created. Yeah. And what happened was they usurped the agreement by getting the Moors that were already over here, who were descended from the original treaty and the original jurisdiction, to get them now to absolve themselves from that by being referred to now as Negroes, blacks, colored, slaves. So what happened was this. From 1492, the so-called Spanish Empire the Moorish Empire in Spain, meaning Andalusia, and the dominions attached to it, which represented Florida. But at this time, Florida, according to the land grants, means everything from the tip of Florida up to New York, all the way over to California. You understand?
Okay.
So Andalusia represents all of that. So Spain, or New Spain, represents all of that. You got that?
Mm-hmm.
So now that those lands existed, the Spanish Empire under Elizabeth was given money by Alessandro and the Medicis, who were now Moors who were forming corporations, per se. And he gave her 50 million levires to pay Boabdil and Eslegal, who were the kings and holders of Granada. Paid them money to establish the Spanish kingdom in the territorial limits of Granada, i.e. Andalusia, i.e. the dominions of the Moors of North Africa and Spain. When El Zagal took that money, they created what they call the surrender of Granada, and that laid out how long the Spanish were going to rule or have dominion in that position, because the Spanish Empire or the Spanish citizens grew up under Moorish rule for 900 years. So these are Moors too. These are not white people.
Mm.
These are people who today, if we saw them, we would call them Dominican or Puerto Rican or Panamanian or whatever. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
They're just functioning under the Christian banner now. So now our children want to have a kingdom for themselves. And now they speak in a different type of Moorish language, which they now call Spanish. So we say cool. But we are the technologically advanced race on the planet.
Mm.
So these people have to get us to dumb ourselves down and dishonor ourselves, you see, so that way they can justify themselves moving up in this illicit rank. And then once we deface ourselves by warring with the lesser, right, we now become prisoners of war. They call their prisoners of war slaves. Understand?
Mm.
And so they start fighting. Then through the colonial powers of Spain, they now sell titles of nobility to France and Britain and Portugal, you see?
Mm-hmm.
And now this becomes the rise of Europe, because all of these were dominions that were under the jurisdiction of Andalus and Granada too. So now Spain has access to those. So then they come and bring that over here through Cortez and Montezuma and them, and then the Moors over here start to rebel. So between the years of 1511 and 1774 starts the Great American Revolution, where all of the Moors now who are rebelling against the new colonial Spanish Empire and their cohorts, the British, the French, and the whoever, they now are in rebellion. So when these Moors rebel against the colonial powers, they are called Maroons.
Mm.
So now they are marooned in different areas. That's why you have Maroons in Haiti. The Maroons in Haiti was founded by Bookman.
Mm-hmm.
The first revolution in Haiti started by Bookman, and Bookman was a Moor. The book that they referred to him of reading was the Quran.
Mm.
To the point where they tried to stop him from teaching the so-called Haitians to read it, to where they threw it in a fire with him and the pages burned on his body. And so he started to teach the Moors the Quran by reading it off of his flesh.
Wow.
You understand?
That's
Just like the Moors in Escamaica, that we now call Jamaica.
Mm-hmm.
They were the Maroons and they fought against the British, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they formed a treaty where the British got to leave them alone, right? And that treaty, on behalf of the Maroons, started with Assalamu Alaikum. And that's the treaty that's defending them right now. The Maroon flag is red. Granny Nanny that started it is buried in Moorestown.
Mm.
But they want those Moors to believe that they're Ethiopian. So that way they don't hook up with the indigenous Moors, Maroons, and then take control of the country as the true inhabitants, aboriginals of Escamaica, the Moors.
Mm.
So when we talk about the Arawaks And the Tainos, we're not talking about Mexican-looking Indians. We're talking about the same people that's there right now.
No, yeah.
The Tainos and the Arawaks were all a part of what they call the Locono Federation. And the Tainos were the ones that would do the negotiation for the treaties. And the Arawak was like the greater tribe in each island or each faction that then protected them. And then the Locono was like the group that was now the ones, the correspondents now to the empire of the Antilles. King Roderick. When the Moors took over Spain over there in Europe, King Roderick and them, who were Visigoths, who were Moors themselves, Roman Moors, right? They got on boats and then they came over here and set up 7 cities in what they call the Antilles. So again, when and where was the white people? The white people didn't get into it till way later, till the end of the 1700s into the 1800s. And then they set everything up based upon the race because we was all broke up. So if you was a Moor here on the land, right, and your name was John Smith Bay, you were John of the Cherokee Smiths of the Moorish clans of Bay, right, in period. But then if you went on a colony and agreed to do work with them there, you were no longer John Smith Bay, you were now John Smith. Or worse, you were now African. They label you an African in England or New England, which is a colony. But you're still on the land in America. But on the colony, you're under the jurisdiction of the British Empire or the Spanish Empire, you see? So in the Spanish Empire and the British Empire, if you're working for them, then you're under their jurisdiction. You're no longer a noble of the Moorish Empire. Because if you were, you wouldn't put yourself under them, would you? No.
Exactly.
So you are now labeled as an African, and then they enslave you. Then they put you on a boat and ship you down to the Mississippi River, but the Mississippi River is listed as the Atlantic Ocean. So now you're an African enslaved in England being shipped through the Atlantic Ocean, where you dock in the United States, Mississippi, see, Greensville, where now you're a nigger. Or a piece of chattel, you see? And then you're sold, and you keep being sold until you're dead or until you can buy your freedom. But now when you buy your freedom, you're now a free man. But now you have to go and declare your nationality to get your estates back. But you can't do that because there's no consul to the empire anymore because all of those Moors, nationality has been taken from them. So now the only thing you can deal with is being an Indian. You see what I'm saying? And then they take that from you, and now you got to be a Negro. You see what I'm saying?
For 1681, the term white people didn't exist.
Yeah.
And that
the term white people was first used by the British in Barbados to define the difference between Moorish Europeans and so-called pale-skinned Europeans.
So
who are now Freemasons of nobility.
A lot of people ask, what were they called before then? What were they calling themselves, or what were they called?
They were white, but they were W-I-G-H-T, white. Look that up.
W-I-G-H-T?
Yeah.
Wow. What's the?
There's a place in England called the Isle of Wight, and that's where we used to take the white males and sell them up and see which ones we was going to ship, put back into the mountains, and the ones we was going to civilize and bring it to the human family eventually. And these were also, they were also called Mamelukes. M-A-M-E-L-U-K-E-S. Italians call themselves Mamelukes, each other. Oh, you're a stupid Mameluke. And they say, oh, you're a stupid Muli. Muli means teacher, though.
So how many of our people were here in this part of the world? And what was this part of the world called by us? What did we call it? What was the name? Was it America or was it another name?
The Babylonians called it Amaru. The Babylonians and Chaldeans and them, they called this place Amaru.
Amaru.
The Egyptian, Amaru, A-M-U-U-R. Excuse me, A-M-U-R-R-U. And then the More is referred to as the Maghreb al-Aqsa, which
west.
is the Maghreb, which is the Morocco of the extreme west.
Mm.
So anything west of Mali was the Moorish Empire. The Moorish Empire in Africa was Songhai, Mali, Benin,
Ghana,
the Fulani, Ghana, Algiers, Tripoli, all that. But Algiers over here was in Louisiana. You see what I'm saying? That's why you'll have places over here named as places over there. But really, the places over there were named after the places here.
Yeah.
So whatever it is now is what it was then. The difference is they got us thinking that white people are a majority physically in the United States, and that's not true. White people are a minority in every place on the planet. That's what we have to understand. But they are the majority in the federal government. So when they say they're the majority, they're talking about those who are supported and attached to the United States. The United States that they're talking about is Washington, London, Israel, and what's the other one?
Washington, London, and
Washington, Israel.
The Vatican is the Vatican
Washington's
part of
the military.
The Vatican.
In London City.
I heard that the Vatican actually.
And the Vatican.
There you go.
Washington, Israel, London City, Vatican. There you go. That's the United States. That's these United States.
Because
that's the corporate 15th Amendment stuff that everybody's under. We're not a part of that.
I heard that Washington D.C. is under the trust owned by or controlled by the Vatican.
Yes, that's why when the Moors broke away in the Constitution, they broke away from the British Empire because they didn't feel that they needed to pay the Vatican and the British at the same time. So they said, well, we'll get the British, but we'll keep the Vatican ties. That's why during the Civil War, I got letters that the secretary wrote the Sultan of Morocco to ask him not to recognize the federal states and that the United States was still under the jurisdiction of His Majesty and that they were just in rebellion and that it would benefit him if he would not support their position in it. So again, they're asking us to not deal with them because they're in rebellion against what they know they're supposed to be doing for us. You understand? So they've been in perpetual war for themselves. They're a country of 241 years, but they've been at war for 229 years of those.
Where do you see everything going, Aseer, as far as all the history that has already taken place? Because I look at it as a pattern of activity that's leading to something,
I see a centralization. I see a centralization of consciousness into a point where there will be people who are able to actively pursue imperial goals and see them met due to having ancestral ties that can't be broken because they're the ones that they function with. They don't broke every treaty but the one with Morocco. And the only reason why we're not benefiting from that because we all haven't accepted what was here or left for us. We're looking for somewhere else. So the more we keep crying and waiting for somebody else, aliens or Africans or whoever to come save us, and as long as we keep identifying with what they say we are, we'll never be able to come back that. So declaring your nationality has nothing to do with asking anybody anything. If your name is Raheem and I keep calling you Steve, you are Raheem so long as you don't accept you being Steve. But if I torture you and redact you or rendition you to the point where you just wanted to stop, you'll be Steve. And then from that point, you're Steve. You understand? But it still doesn't change that you are Raheem too. Exactly. But now Stephen has taken the primary position. So in international law, the reason why it says that in the Universal Declaration of Indigenous People is because in international law, there's only two states. Nationality, and alienage. That's it. So if you have a nationality, then you have a place to go and a place to be. If you're an alien, you don't have a nationality, that means you're stateless. Stateless means you're an alien. Alien means that you're not a human. You understand? This is how they run their society because they descend from Neanderthals. You understand? This is not a disrespect to Caucasian people as a mass or group or racism. Nothing. This is the truth. They descend from Neanderthals. And our people, for whatever reason, chose to upgrade aspects of them and domesticate them to the point that they look the way they look now. That's why they refer to themselves as mankind. And one of the traits of Neanderthals is that they are great mimickers. Understand? They know how to copy very well. But in order for them to maintain a society, they're still savage in nature. You understand? They're savage by nature. So they can't exist in a civilized society without some sort of savagery. You understand? To exist. So there has to be some sort of penal system or something like that for them to be able to get this off, for them not to refer to full barbarism. So they have a society based on civilized barbarism. So once you accept that, you accept the fact that in that society, one of the leashes that keeps them from going apeshit on you is having a nationality. Because they could beat up a Negro, but if they find out that that Negro is actually a Kenyan national, they're going to do whatever they can to not anger the Department of State, because that means the federal government now has to answer for them attacking a foreign national. So when you declare yourself as a foreign national, you do so by declaration. Ethiopia, for existence, gives you land and credit and things like that in Ethiopia if you exist outside the boundaries of the Ethiopian Empire for more than 20 years and not give up your Ethiopian nationality or citizenship, right? So by the time you turn 18, you understand, you've already been under foreign rule for as many years. So once you come into knowledge itself, let's say by 25 now, everything that exists for you based upon you going back to your nationality is still there for you. It's just not laid out in an account. You have to put it together. You can't put it together if you believe that what they understand on YouTube as nationality is the way to go. Mm-hmm. Everything that you do or anything that's done in law is based on declaration.
That's right.
When you do an affidavit, a writ, whatever, that is a declaration of an intent. Therefore, whatever declaration you put in is a letter of intent. Who you are and what you choose to do, right?
Okay, real quick before.
So if that's the case, once you put the declaration in and you say, well, you do a formal name correction, and you say in that name correction that I am this and I am that, the declaration that you are doing, the petition that you're doing it from magically changes into a declaration. And in law, a declaration is absolute. When the judge makes a declaration, that's it. From that judge until you go to some another judge to overturn that. So you now become the judge, which because they put in something called the Judiciary Act of 1789 that says whenever one of us from the old empire under the name several states goes into a courtroom, that courtroom has to reflect the jurisdiction of us. And that's also reflected in the Treaty of Peace and Friendship of 1787. And that's also reflected in the Constitution of 1787. The Constitution, the Treaty of Peace and Friendship of 1787 was signed by the Sultan of Washington and them on the Delaware River. It wasn't signed in Morocco over there.
But
there was no Morocco over there until 1956. Think about that. They hijacked the flag. These niggas are so dirty. Morocco Noble Joe Ali raised that in 1928. There was no Morocco over there in 1928. That was under the jurisdiction of the French. That was French Morocco. Right? Because who went in there first? Because whoever go in there first bring in the next person. So when they went in there, the French went in there. Well, actually, no, the French inherited it from the Spanish. And then from the Spanish, the Germans went in. And then from the Germans, the U.S. went in over there. But over here, it was always us falling under the different jurisdiction without understanding how the empire, how we were cut off from the greater empire outside of the corporate U.S. that we were locked down into. This is why they terrorize black people, to keep them in certain areas, to keep them from thinking internationally. Because internationally, they were still a part of the empire that in some places still existed, like Zanzibar and Malamar and different types of Moorish kingdoms. The Mahdi was the one that broke the British Empire and they set up. He set his kingdom at Khartoum.
Where was he? Was he from Sudan? He was in Sudan.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Destroyed the French. Destroyed the British.
Destroyed the French
and
the British.
To the knees. He's the reason why they had to abdicate and break up the empire in the future. But right now, there's something that the French have called the Pact to Continue Colonialization, where they take 15% of 16 different African nations every year and have to hoard at least 20% of their national GDP in their foreign banks. And if they don't, the French government sends the legionnaires in to kill whoever's running the government. This is the only reason why the French government still exists. If this was taken away, there would be no France.
They would go bankrupt.
And right, but who is perpetuating this? When we say the legionnaires, who's that? That's a bunch of French Grand Orient, Scottish Rite of Grand Orient Masons who are gay, Templar Jesuit Masons who are gay, who are in Africa, and they are bonded with whatever black mercenaries that they send in there to go kill their own people to be, rich in Europe and shit. So who's really destroying the African people? It's their own people. They're doing it to themselves. How you have your own nation and y'all bleaching? How you got your own black nation and y'all building the biggest image of a white Jesus in the world? What kind of people is this? Who is this?
Confused and brainwashed. You heard what Ben Carson said today?
Yeah, man, but I don't listen to Negroes. I don't listen to slaves. So he can say what he wants. That has nothing. I don't live in his country.
There you go.
You understand?
Yeah. See, what's the someone wants to declare their nationality, right? What's the general overview?
Well, I can say what you're doing. What you're doing by doing it is separating yourself from the assumed identity created illegally at the time of your birth. And then what you do is focus on the divine side and the national side, because we are divine and a national movement. Therefore, the combination of which the divine and national movement is the organ back to the Moorish Empire. This is what allows you to go back to Muslim customary law as an everyday practice. This is what allows you to be tax exempt fully, because you are fully living who you are as the Moorish Science Temple of America on a religious tip, but then on a status tip, you are functioning as a royal Muslim of the West. Because a Muslim is one who is of ancient character and of the bloodline of Muhammad, meaning that you are now the true Islamic royalty and heir, because you're the only one on the planet that's holding the name of the highest name of God on the planet, which is Il, Allah, Alad, Alud. These are the expressions of Allah. But what Allah is the higher self. So if we know that Allah is the highest self, then the expression of the highest self is love, truth, peace, freedom, justice, and equality, which culminate as the essence of being in how you carry yourself under the divine law that actualizes in the term isonomy, which is I, son, I, mother, which is you functioning along the lines of the vine and fig tree that you come from. And we come from an ancient, super ancient people who never gave up wearing the symbolic aspect of their connection to God, which is the tarbouch, or the fez, or the shisha, or the turban, or the dastar, or whatever you want to call it. Anything but a head wrap. You understand? Because to call it a head wrap is then demeaning what it is. It's a head wrap when somebody that has no nationality is wrapping it.
It's a customary
it's a customary practice when you can have that image of you with that on all of your documentation. Now, how many Moors I know who call themselves all of this in grand sheiks and temples, they don't even have a passport with their free national name and headdress on it in the same thing. That means that you're impersonating. That means they can still deal with you. When you're living in the light, you can be that in everything and then not be held accountable to the old situation. Because now the old situation, which is the straw man or the debt pledge or the mortgage-backed security or the birth certificate or whatever you want to call it, now that you turn that into an estate and a trust to correct the error that they did everything through. So now you don't have to deal with them because by their actions, they've proven that they are disharmonious and untrustworthy. Because if they did, then you wouldn't have to authenticate the instrument to prove that it's good. So when you hear more say, oh, you authenticated a birth certificate, you're putting yourself back under jurisdiction, what they are failing to understand, and this is how you know that we have a way to go, is that you and I were never under their jurisdiction to begin with. Even if they was to snatch you or whatever today and do whatever they do to you, it don't mean they have the right to do that. So that means then that you exist in a perpetual state of peace that was culminated or referred to us in the older place times as the old Moorish Empire, where you could be guaranteed to be wherever nationality you were around, but never have to give up your home. You understand? Dracula got so heated that we wouldn't take our feathers off that he nailed it to the Moors' heads. And look what happened to him. And that happened right here in Transylvania, North Carolina. But niggas is looking over there in Europe. That place was called Wallachia. But again, we got it twisted because we watch his movies. We lust after his woman. We want to have his history. We want to do all that. And everything he's showing us is him in our clothes. Old Latin.
Yeah, Punic Latin, right?
Yeah, like I could say, Kumalio Kuntrahi Vela Est Vela Ebe Debit Non Ignoros Ignoros Contradictos Ellos or Quiacurit Sibi Acurit Heredibus. Right? That sounds crazy. But
That
what I
beautiful.
said was he who enters into a contract is either needs to be or excuse me, he who enters into a contract needs to know, if he doesn't know, that the contract is good. And then the last part was, and he who secures for himself secures for his heirs. So these are maxims of law that our ancestors left for us. You understand? Like, I've been in court and started speaking this shit to these people. Just like I said it to you, I said that right to a judge. Whole thing switch up. Whole thing start breaking down. You understand? It has nothing to do, it's like a mind state. You just get to a point where you just accept that they never had the jurisdiction. And they put it in law that they didn't. They created a citizenship for themselves in 1871. So that means that there was a citizenship before that. So what was the citizenship before that? That's what I am. You see, it's easy. But Moors want to fight. They want to be right. They like his way of warfare. I'm done with all that, man. If people want to holler and get it right for real, you know, on my YouTube stuff, you can check out. There's a 1-800 number. You can list your, call, leave a message or whatever, and, I'll eventually get back to you. It may not be tomorrow or the next day, but I'm going to holler at you, just like I've been doing. But I can't have people call my phone no more. I can't have emails directly to my crib like that because it's getting too much. And that's how I know that all of these movements and all of this stuff happening at Farrakhan and this one saying, none of that's happening. Not if everybody calling me, asking me if these dudes is legit. They can't be legit if they asking me, who am I? I'm nobody. I'm just somebody that really went in and chose not to take the money, chose not to join the order, chose not to be seen with people who are irreparable. I'm not going to deal with that. And because of that, I was somewhat blacklisted out of the whole thing. And that's also my doing, because there was a part I just couldn't do it. I just can't be around people I know that is really BSing and just trying to do this because really they just want to be seen because nobody listened to them when they was younger or they was abused.
Blacklisted by who? By other Moors, or are you talking about some of the other people?
When I say Moors, I'm talking about everybody that got black skin.
I feel it.
Dark skin. That's when I say it. That's what I'm talking about. So if they think they that or not, I don't care. I'm not trying to convince you of nothing. There's enough free information I don't put out in classes that I'm doing and things that I'm striving to continue to do where people can figure it out. I'm not soliciting nobody. I'm not trying to recruit nobody. I'm not the leader of nobody's revolution. I'm none of that stuff. I see what y'all have done to everybody that came and tried to help y'all and do all that shit. You ain't going to do that to me. You ain't going to do that to people I love. If you want to holler at me, if you want to get it right, there's a pipeline, there's an underground mainstream where things is really getting done. Really getting done. but nobody know about it because it's not on YouTube, it's not on Facebook, it's not on Instagram,
and it shouldn't be.
I'm not talking to nobody about it.
They transform.
And you know, that's ego. The ego make you think that it's real, and the ego's there for self-preservation. But after a while, it just preserves itself and leaves you alone, and you wind up being alone. Or worse. My situation is different. I didn't start out to do this. I didn't start out to want to know none of this. I didn't think I did, but obviously I did on a spiritual level. But I didn't consciously. I just knew that I wasn't no damn slave. I knew that. Mm-hmm. So based on that, I never let myself be around somebody in black, white, Indian, Asian, and them tell me what I was or am in their code. I tell them, no, I'm talking to the Chinese man. No, I'm descended from the dragon emperors, Fu Hai and them, the Xiang dynasty. See what I'm saying? Off top. I'm talking to an Arab. Oh, you talking about Havilah? No, that's Nabatea. That means you was under the jurisdiction of the Candaces, who was the queen of Sheba, who were the daughters of Bledo Sheba, that was connected to the line of the sons of Ham that was from over here. See what I'm saying? I'm talking to a Spanish person. Oh, who? Don Rodrigo? Nah, he came under Sanchez the First, and Sanchez the First was darker than me. So no. You see what I'm saying? Anybody, off top.
That's truly a gift, man. Where do you get most of your information? Is it from just your own research, reading, or do you have study groups that you just read? You're not a member of any temple or lead of any temples or anything like that.
No, I was a chairman for the Moorish Temple of America under Home Office rule out of Chicago for maybe about a year and a half. And then from there, I wound up going through the ADEP chamber in 2014. Then I was anointed to be head of our sultanate, which is our centralized government of Moors. But it's private. It's not like I'm trying to get people to be like me or be down with it. Nah, it's something that I can't even really talk about in a way because it is what it is. It's like it's totally organic of whatever people say or think that it is. And in being a part of something like that, where it's not an ego-based thing, things are getting done because it's not about glorifying who and what we are. We're already glorious. What we have to do is consolidate that glory in a manner that is applicable where we see an active physical change in our everyday life from it, like any other culture. So there's no reason why you shouldn't be seeing little Moroccos all over the place. So I can work with a group of people to make something like that happen. Let's do that. Indeed. But I'm not going to sully it or poison it or speak against the prophet or try to make it seem like I need everybody to call me sultan and stuff like that. No. I was anointed by this group of Moors that wanted to do that, so I accepted that responsibility. So, yes, I am the sultan. But in that, when they tried to create rumors about me saying I was the head sultan of the Moorish Science Temple and I was trying to take over them, that nobody can take. Are you crazy? I would never be so ego-driven or so low that I would try to defame the prophet. You know what I'm saying? After all this man gave me, I'm not going to tarnish that or any of the Moors because Noble didn't create Moors. You know what I'm saying? It was Moorish Americans before him. I got books from the 1800s where they call them as Moorish Americans. There's a thing called the Moorish Orthodox Church with thousands of white people that worship the Prophet Noble Charlie.
Wow, that is so interesting. Like I said, that'll be great.
Around with the same red book, Circle 7, and all that you got.
Mm-hmm.
They've been knew who the Prophet was. They the ones that allow certain things to come. That's why when we come in the name, we got to be right, exact, and correct.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's not about getting people to do this, do that. It's about if you really about it, then okay, well, if you can do these things, then they'll get done. But it's not me doing it for you. It's not you downloading paperwork. It's me taking my time and making sure that the things that I'm asking you to do that you've signed up to do, you're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't do it, it ain't me.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? It's you. So yes, declaring your nationality through a temple is great, but that's only one aspect of it, man. Don't let these jokers make you think that's it. That just downloaded and mailing it, that's it. No, how are you going to transfer that information onto a state ID, onto a passport, onto a thing? How you do that? That's now you actualizing your national character. That's totally different from naturalization. Naturalization is you giving up the state you already in. You already in Morocco.
Mm-hmm.
So all you got to do is allow yourself to realize it. And the nationality thing is the first step.
Yeah, even that naturalization, I think the Naturalization Act they had here it came in 1790, right? And
that was us doing that for them. Then they redid it in the 1800s under civil rights, and then they redid it again. But now you got Moors naturalizing people. This is how crazy it is.
Oh my God, are you
but
serious?
Hey, man, yeah, bugging. But hey, man, I'm not speaking against nobody. That's what these people want to do. Let them do it, man. People believe that that's true. Let them do that, man. I'm not, whatever, yo. You know what I'm saying? Like, whatever.
I'm very driven towards solutions for many of the problems that we are still like battling and dealing with, especially just our because I feel like we're under a spell. We've been under a spell for a long time. That's why some of us can't absorb the information and even begin to understand the truth of it, because like the lies that we've been told are so big and so many that when you hear even a morsel of truth, it just seems that's impossible.
Yeah, but I used to believe that too, man. But you know what? I be around these people, man. I'm around these people. I'm in the field, man. I'm out here. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not like I travel. I be in the street. Like, I'm out here, man. And what I see is people. I could tell you a lie all day, man. I could bombard you with lies all day. It's what you accept the truth to be is what the lie work or not. And what I see is a lot of Moors allowing themselves to believe lies. And when I say Moors again, I'm talking about
all the melanated people.
I'm talking about all the melanated diaspora, them people.
My son turned 15 in October. My daughter turned 13 in February, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I teach them every single day. I try to make sure, like, I'm structuring them with certain things. It's not just about history. It's about, in learning how to cook, learning how to clean, learning how to protect yourself, learning, all these different things, how to start a business, how to provide for yourself,
That's Muslim customary law. That's what it is. That's Moorish science.
Yes.
That's what it is. That's what it is. That's what it is, more. That's what I'm saying. That's it. What I'm saying more is that the children when you say children, you're talking about the ones in front of you, but as men, we are responsible for the seen and the unseen. Whether that's right or wrong, it's the truth. So regardless, the children you gotta bring about is the ones that's gonna live for your kids. You gotta sync that up, because how the white man do, when the white man finds out he got a baby, he think he got a baby. He just set a trust up right away and already start funding it and start borrowing against that shit. That's how the white man do. And then he take that trust and then double up on 2 other trusts and then consolidate those trusts into a holding company. From the holding company, he shift that into a shell company. From the shell company, he turned that into what they call a profile sheet that will then list all of the different assets and trusts that are associated with the shell company, which then gives him more money to be able to now set up a huge trust in the name of all of the family now, right? For the next 5 generations more. This is what you up against. So when these more start talking to me about, or these blacks start talking to me about revolution and power and all this, these niggas don't understand true power more. They don't understand true wealth, true nobility, true royalty, true evil. True evil more. I'm talking about people who like in the movie Get Out, have generationally eaten. Do you know Rothschild has had 101 heart surgeries more?
Dude, are you this
is the story. This is the story how they got. This is how this demon been living. This Dick Cheney done had 5. Every time one of these black kids die. Do you know that they just found out that they done made over, the black market that made over $18 billion off of children organs from refugees from Syria? What you think they doing with all these immigrants they locking up in cages? You think they sending them back to their place of origin? Them people are detainees. Them people are refugees. Them people don't have no country. Therefore, the white man could do what he wants to them. That's what nationality do, nigga. If we're gonna get graphic, that's why you need one. Yourself to the land nowhere. You can wind up in a damn styrofoam box, nigga. This is how they want people. So you better have a government. You better have a nationality. Your children better have some sort of God or some sort of spirituality outside of Luciferianism for them to deal with, to know the difference, that it's wrong to be a boy and just like a girl, or vice versa, or be a boy and want to be a girl and want to be with a man. That's wrong. I was taught that was wrong.
Yeah.
Come on. That's not what you're dealing with. That's why the first shot of Jamaica came when Elton John tried to shit on Shabba Ranks. And Shabba Ranks said he wasn't down with that homo shit. And then Buju was an advocate on that shit, like keep that shit out of the church and the schools and all that. And that's when they wound up attacking them. Now that don't mean that nigga wasn't pushing dope, what he was doing. But it does say that was the gateway, and that was the unseen thing. And then they used people like Shaggy and Beanie Man and them to go in and become mainstream, and then get Bounty Killer to then hook up with Gwen Stefani, who be at the spirit cooking dinners, cutting up cakes in the form of human bodies and shit. This is the culture that they want original people to accept. And you mean to tell me it's easier as a man for you to put on a dress than put on a vest, and I got the problem? I tell you,
teach more,
like I said, more. I'm not even gonna.
Teach
I'm
more.
sorry, I gotta get ready to bounce out, but I want to thank you.
I want to thank you, brother. Thank you so much, and hopefully we can do a follow up or just do some more talks in the future, because I believe that your mind is invaluable. You know what I mean? I really appreciate you coming on and just sharing some of the information with us. Again, everyone, this is Aseer the Duke of TIERS. Aseer, thank you. If you want to just let them know how they could get in touch with you again, you was mentioning the 800 number and your YouTube channel and all of that.
If you check my latest videos, any of my videos, the 800 number's not listed. I don't have it in front of me, but it's going to be on all of the new videos. Just call, leave a message. Eventually, I myself or maybe the Imperial Secretary get back to you and set up a consult or something, and then we take it from there. Okay. If you want to holler at me again, you could also do through email, which is houseofl@hotmail.com. You could also check out any of my videos. Aseer the Duke of TIERS on YouTube. You can check out 7 years worth of the radio show we did on blogtalkradio.com called Superhero Radio. You could also check out some of my older classes on www.aseerthedukeoftiers.com. That's ASEER, excuse me, THDUKEOSTIERS.com. You could also check some of my newer classes and things like that on a website called Gumroad. That's www.gumroad.com. They're like 2-3 hour classes on there that you can read the description of and choose which one you want to go into or whatever. What else is there? I wrote a book called The Dark Skull 418. You can check out the reviews on Amazon. I'm one of the only sold out best-selling novels that's on there with a 5-star rating, so I'm proud of that. It's called The Dark Skull 418, the world's most dangerous comic book novel. Definitely get that. I wrote it and drew it, so definitely check that out. And what else, man? If you want to send a donation, you can do so at dukeoftears@gmail.com through PayPal. That's, again, dukeoftears@gmail.com. Also, please check out the Queen stuff on YouTube, cookingmorewithless.com.
Peace, Queen Cordova.
Indeed. Also check out her website, www.cordobaorganics.com, for your skincare and health needs in terms of the body. You know, she does great lotions and all those ointments that clear up eczema, what they call dark spots, which really means melanin, and any type of skin situation. She has a hair thing called Hair Magic that helps actually grow people's hair back. It grew my father's hair back before he died, bless the dead. So it works. So again,
Peace.
www.cordobaorganics.com. Again, thanks to her for raising my son and being a support, as well as my other children. And again, thank you, brother, for having me on.
Thank you, brother. Peace and Islam to you, my brother, and peace to the
Islam
Queen
to you,
and Amoor and all your seed and everything, my brother, and much blessing, protection, and everything on you, man. You know, you're a brilliant, brilliant Moor, man, and I'm very proud of you, and I hope you continue, and you know.
I thank you for the support, man.
Yes,
and
sir.
last thing, man. Let's remember that it ain't for all of us to get all of this, man.
No.
This is the book says it's only going to be 144,000, and that's reverberated in a lot of different texts, as well as quantum mechanics. That number keep coming up. So we should strive to be what we are and not what we not. So again, more thank you to the Prophet, thank you to Allah, and all of our ancestors in the empire. Again, long live it.
Yes, sir.
All right, peace.
All right, peace. That was Aseer, the Duke of Tears. We were on. That brother is absolutely phenomenal. I really enjoyed the conversation, talking with him. Again, you could check out his YouTube channel. That is Aseer, the Duke of Tears, as well as his website, AseerTheDukeOfTears.com, and all the information that he mentioned, where you can contact him or check out some of the works that he's done. Again, this is the Hut 9. This is Mind TV, where we provoke thoughts and inspire thinking. I want to thank y'all for checking out the show. Make sure you subscribe, hit that subscribe button. Like our Facebook page at facebook.com/MindTV. That's M9ND TV. And tune in for more upcoming shows, okay? One love. Peace out.